The rain came down in sharp silver needles, tapping against the transparent umbrella that Jonah Caldwell held awkwardly above his head. He was late, again, and he knew it. His boss would have sent a series of passive-aggressive messages by now, each one a masterclass in the fine art of guilt-tripping. But Jonah wasn't worried. This was just another Tuesday in his life, chaotic, wet, and uneventful in all the wrong ways. He adjusted the strap of his satchel, trying to keep the damp edges of his pants from soaking into his socks. His shoes squelched against the slick pavement as he crossed the plaza, where neon signs from the surrounding high-rises painted the puddles in swirling hues of pink, green, and electric blue. The sky overhead was a patchwork of drones, their steady hum blending into the ambient noise of the city. Somewhere nearby, a street performer played an otherworldly tune on an alien wind instrument, its sound both haunting and oddly cheerful. Jonah had gotten used to the quirks of life in New Haven, one of Earth's most diverse cities since the signing of the Intergalactic Accord. Aliens of all shapes, sizes, and temperaments mingled with humans, their languages and customs creating a chaotic, vibrant culture. Yet, for all its excitement, Jonah's life had remained stubbornly dull. He worked in tech support for a mid-level firm that specialized in alien-to-human translation software, a job that was as unglamorous as it sounded. Nothing like debugging bad Al-Zeri syntax errors to really feel alive, Jonah muttered to himself, dodging a speeding hover scooter that passed a little too close. As he neared his apartment building, a strange sensation crept up his spine. It wasn't something he could explain, just a faint prickle, like the air pressure had shifted. Jonah paused, glancing over his shoulder. The plaza behind him was bustling with activity, but nothing seemed out of place. He shrugged it off and pressed his thumb to the biometric scanner on his building's entrance. "Welcome home, Jonah," chimed the building's AI, its voice cheery and robotic. "Thanks, Hal," Jonah replied, a grin tugging at his lips. He'd named the AI after the villain in that old movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, a joke the building's actual AI still didn't understand. The elevator ride to the 12th floor was uneventful, except for the single flicker of the overhead lights. Jonah frowned at that, but said nothing. It wasn't unusual for the aging infrastructure of the city to glitch, and he was too tired to care. When the elevator doors slid open, he stepped out into the dimly lit hallway. His apartment was at the far end, and he dug for his keycard as he walked. Then he saw it. The door to his apartment was already ajar. Jonah froze. 1,000 scenarios raced through his mind, each more ridiculous than the last. Was it a burglar? A prank? Had he forgotten to lock it this morning? He took a cautious step forward, his sneakers squeaking against the floor. "Hello?" he called, his voice cracking slightly. "If you're here to rob me, just take the TV. It's barely worth the trouble." There was no answer. He pushed the door open slowly, his breath catching as he peeked inside. The living room was dimly lit by the soft glow of his holo projector, which was still cycling through a playlist of serene alien landscapes. Everything looked untouched, no overturned furniture, no signs of a struggle. But then he saw her. Standing in the center of his living room, bathed in the holographic glow of a distant, twin-sunned planet, was a figure that didn't belong. She was tall and impossibly poised, her silhouette sharp against the swirling backdrop of alien clouds. Her armor, if that's what it was, looked organic, a dark chitinous material that shifted and pulsed as if alive. Her eyes glowed faintly, a luminescent silver that made Jonah's stomach do an involuntary flip. In her hand, she held what could only be described as a weapon, a blade-like construct that shimmered and hummed with an eerie, otherworldly energy. Jonah did what any rational person would do in his situation. He dropped his bag, threw his hands in the air, and blurted, "I don't know what I did, but I'm really, really sorry." The alien woman tilted her head, her expression unreadable. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then, to Jonah's utter disbelief, she spoke. "Jonah Caldwell." Her voice was soft, but carried a weight that made the air around her seem heavier. "You have been marked for termination." Jonah blinked. Marked for, wait, what? You will not suffer, she continued, ignoring his protest. It will be quick. Painless. Oh, great. That's a relief, Jonah said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Let me just update my will first. You don't mind waiting, do you? The woman frowned, her grip tightening on the weapon. For a terrifying moment, Jonah thought she might actually go through with it. But then something strange happened. Her hand wavered. The weapon's glow dimmed slightly, and her silver eyes flickered with an emotion Jonah couldn't quite place. She began, then stopped. Jonah took a cautious step backward, his heart pounding. You what? If this is about parking tickets, I swear I was framed. She took a step toward him, and Jonah's survival instincts kicked in. He grabbed the nearest object, a decorative alien vase that his ex had insisted was a statement piece, and held it out like a shield. I'm warning you, he said, his voice high-pitched. This thing might be worth like 50 credits on the black market. Don't make me use it. To his astonishment, the alien assassin lowered her weapon. Her expression shifted to something almost conflicted. I can't, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Not you. And just like that, she vanished, leaving behind nothing but a faint shimmer in the air and a very bewildered Jonah standing in his living room, holding a vase and questioning every life choice he'd ever made. Well, he muttered to himself, setting the vase down with shaking hands. Guess I'm ordering takeout tonight. Jonah Caldwell wasn't the kind of man who liked mysteries. He preferred things clear-cut and predictable, like his favorite morning coffee order or the way his hover bus was always late. So, waking up to the realization that an alien assassin had invaded his apartment, refused to kill him, and disappeared into thin air wasn't just unsettling, it was downright rude. He sat at his tiny kitchen table, staring into the depths of his coffee mug as if the answers to life's cosmic riddles might be hiding in the swirling steam. The faint hum of his apartment's automated systems provided a soothing background, but Jonah's thoughts were anything but calm. Marked for termination, he muttered, mimicking the assassin's ominous tone. Well, joke's on her. My credit score is already dead, so good luck finding anything worth terminating. The humor, weak as it was, did little to ease the tension knotting his shoulders. His eyes darted to the living room, where the faint shimmer left by her departure still lingered like the ghost of bad decisions past. Just then, his holo projector chirped, snapping him out of his reverie. A cheerful face materialized in midair. A customer service avatar, its expression aggressively peppy. Good morning, Jonah Caldwell, the avatar chirped. This is a friendly reminder that your rent is due tomorrow. Would you like to process payment now? Jonah groaned. Not unless you can accept existential dread as currency. Unfortunately, that payment method is not recognized, the avatar replied, completely unfazed. He waved it away, muttering, I need a new planet. But leaving Earth wasn't exactly an option. Space travel wasn't cheap, and Jonah's savings were modest at best. Still, the thought lingered as he turned his attention back to the problem at hand. Why had an alien assassin spared him? And more importantly, why had she been sent after him in the first place? Jonah didn't have any enemies, unless you counted the guy from accounting who always stole his lunch from the break room fridge. But even Kevin wouldn't hire an alien hitwoman. Right? Jonah decided to retrace his steps. Not literally. His wet sneakers from last night had already left a trail across his apartment, but figuratively. There had to be some kind of clue, something he'd overlooked in the chaos. He started with the obvious, his apartment. Jonah wasn't exactly a neat freak, but his space was functional, with everything in its place, except for the faint scorch mark on the floor where the assassin's weapon had briefly hummed to life. Great, he muttered, crouching to inspect the mark. I hope my landlord loves spontaneous redecorating. As he leaned closer, he noticed something odd, a faint residue, almost like glitter, clinging to the edges of the scorch mark. He touched it hesitantly, half expecting it to dissolve into nothing, Instead, it stuck to his fingers, glinting faintly in the morning light. Alien glitter? He mused, holding his hand up to the light. What is this? Intergalactic craft time. Jonah grabbed a tissue, wiping the residue off as best he could, and made a mental note to research it later. Next, he turned his attention to the less tangible aspects of the encounter, specifically, the assassin's words. Why him? Or more accurately, why not him? The question gnawed at the edges of his mind like an uninvited thought during a work meeting. Determined to dig deeper, Jonah decided to consult someone who might have answers. Galnet, the intergalactic internet. His old tablet was a relic from 3 tech cycles ago, but it still worked, more or less. After a few frustrated attempts to load the search engine, it kept redirecting him to ads for hover toasters. He finally managed to type in, "Alien assassins refusing to kill target?" The search results were predictably chaotic. Forums with titles like, "My ex was an alien assassin, AMA," mingled with questionable ads for self-defense classes and shady conspiracy blogs. Jonah sighed, scrolling past the nonsense until a particular entry caught his eye. How to Identify Organic Weaponry Residue, a Beginner's Guide. The article, hosted on a website that looked only marginally credible, described a phenomenon eerily similar to the glitter-like residue he'd found. According to the post, such residue was often linked to a rare type of organic weaponry used by high-level assassins. Great, Jonah muttered, rubbing his temples. So, not only was she here to kill me, but she's also top tier. Just my luck. But the article also mentioned something else. Organic weapons were typically genetically locked to their wielders. If the assassin had hesitated, it could mean the weapon had malfunctioned due to familiarity. Familiarity? Jonah frowned. That didn't make sense. He didn't know any alien assassins, or any aliens personally for that matter. Or did he? Jonah's train of thought was interrupted by a loud knock at the door. His heart jumped into his throat as he grabbed the nearest object, a metal spatula, and crept toward the door. "Delivery!" a cheerful voice called from the hallway. He let out a shaky breath, feeling more than a little ridiculous as he opened the door. A lanky delivery bot stood there, holding a package. Its digital face displayed a smiley emoji. "Sign here," it chirped. Jonah signed, grabbed the package, and shut the door quickly. The package was small and nondescript, with no return address. Jonah's stomach sank as he opened it, half expecting it to explode. Instead, he found a single object, a data chip. "Okay," he said aloud, staring at the chip. "This is either a clue or the start of a really bad spy movie." He hesitated for a moment before plugging the chip into his tablet. The screen flickered to life, displaying a grainy video. The image was shaky, but Jonah could make out a figure, himself, sitting in a coffee shop. He looked younger, though not by much, and completely unaware of the camera recording him. The video ended abruptly, leaving Jonah staring at the screen in stunned silence. "What the hell is going on?" he whispered. Jonah Caldwell was no expert in surveillance technology, but he'd watched enough sci-fi thrillers to recognize the signs of a very bad situation when he saw one. His fingers hovered over the screen, still frozen in disbelief at the grainy footage. There he was, sitting in a coffee shop, looking completely oblivious, while some faceless figure had been recording him. "Well, this is just great," he muttered, leaning back in his chair, massaging his temples. "First, an alien assassin tries to kill me. Now I'm starring in an unsanctioned documentary about my life. What's next? Am I going to wake up and find out I'm the chosen one of some forgotten prophecy?" The idea seemed strangely plausible. He'd been cursed by bad luck for as long as he could remember, so why not add an ancient prophecy to the list? The data chip sat on the table in front of him, gleaming in the light, daring him to unlock its secrets. Jonah picked it up gingerly, as if it might explode in his hand. He plugged it into his tablet again, this time with more determination. The screen flickered briefly before another video loaded. This time, the footage was clearer, and Jonah's breath hitched as he recognized the place. It was his old apartment, but not his current one. This was his childhood home, the place he hadn't stepped foot in for nearly 2 decades. The footage was from a time before he'd left for college, before life had become a dull march of work, bills, and the occasional existential crisis. He saw himself again, younger, sitting at a desk, scribbling furiously on a pad of paper. Beside him, a woman was visible, tall with striking features that immediately reminded Jonah of someone, but he couldn't place who. She was leaning over his shoulder, pointing at the paper, and then it hit him. The woman in the video. She looked almost identical to the alien assassin. The same sharp features, the same cold, calculating eyes, except this version of her seemed younger, almost tender. Hold on, Jonah muttered, rewinding the video. No way. This isn't happening. He watched the scene again, slower this time. There it was, on the paper. The strange, swirling symbols that seemed to pulse with a light of their own. Symbols Jonah had seen before, in his nightmares. He had dismissed them as meaningless, just his mind's way of coping with the odd feeling that something was missing from his life. But this was real. "You've got to be kidding me," Jonah whispered. "This is insane." The woman in the video, her face finally clicking into place, wasn't just a random alien assassin. She was connected to him somehow. And those symbols, those were his symbols. A knock on the door interrupted Jonah's spiral into confusion. His pulse quickened. He'd already had one surprise guest, and another could only mean more trouble. With hesitation, he walked to the door and peered through the peephole. Standing outside was a tall woman, wearing a dark cloak that shimmered with a strange, iridescent quality. Her eyes were sharp like twin obsidian daggers, and her expression? Well, that wasn't one of friendship. Jonah's first instinct was to lock the door and hide under his bed, but he'd already been doing a lot of that lately. Instead, he squared his shoulders and opened the door with a casualness he didn't feel. "You!" The woman's voice was low, laced with suspicion, yet tinged with an odd sense of recognition. "You are the one from the videos." Jonah blinked. Yeah, I think that's my line. I was kind of hoping for an explanation." The woman's eyes narrowed. She tilted her head slightly, her fingers twitching as if she were resisting the urge to pull out some deadly weapon. Jonah half expected her to pull a sword out of her sleeve, but instead, she spoke. "You don't remember me, do you?" Jonah paused, his heart racing. "Should I?" Her lips twisted into something that might have been a smile or a sneer. "It's not surprising you don't. You were a child. I barely recognized you myself, though I should have. But we have a history." Jonah felt the air around him grow thick, as if the very atmosphere was pressing down on him. His thoughts were spinning faster than a hover car in a rush-hour traffic jam, trying to piece together any information that made sense. History. She was talking about him, Jonah. The same Jonah who'd never seen an alien in his life until yesterday. He started, but his voice trailed off. There was no way this woman, an alien assassin no less, was connected to his past in any real way. "Your mother didn't tell you, did she?" she continued, voice laced with bitter amusement. "How convenient. I suppose I should be grateful. You would have ruined everything had you known." Jonah stepped back, rubbing his eyes. He had to be dreaming. There was no way this was real. "Look, I don't know who you think I am, but I'm not interested in whatever this is. I just want to know why you didn't kill me." The assassin's eyes softened for a fraction of a second before the cold wall came crashing back down. "You're the key, Jonah, the key to a larger puzzle, one that's been decades in the making." "Great. A puzzle. Just what I needed today," Jonah muttered, but she ignored him. "You have no idea who you are, do you?" She leaned in closer, lowering her voice to a dangerous whisper. "The symbols, the technology, the video you saw, they're all linked to you. They were never meant for your eyes, but somehow, you've already stumbled into this web." Jonah's head was spinning, his mind racing to catch up with the flood of information. "You're talking like I'm part of some intergalactic conspiracy." The woman didn't answer. Instead, she stepped aside, gesturing toward his table. "You should have a look at the rest of the files. They'll tell you everything you need to know." Jonah hesitated, but couldn't deny the pull of curiosity. He looked at her, then back at the pile of data chips and holographic files strewn across the table. "Fine," he said, steeling himself for whatever this mess was about to reveal. "Let's finish this puzzle then." She smirked. "Good, but I hope you're ready, Jonah, because once you know, there's no going back." And with that, the door closed behind her, leaving Jonah with 1,000 questions, no answers, and an uncomfortable suspicion that his life was about to take a very strange turn. Jonah didn't sleep that night. The words the assassin had spoken echoed in his mind, rattling around like loose change in a tin can. There was something deeply unsettling about her cryptic statements. "You're the key. You have no idea who you are." The web. What web? Was he really involved in some intergalactic conspiracy, or had his life suddenly turned into one of those over-the-top spy thrillers that had been popular for about 5 minutes on Netflix? But one thing was certain. He wasn't going to get any answers by sitting around and stewing. The next morning, Jonah made the decision. If he was going to figure this out, he needed more than vague threats and mysterious aliens popping by his apartment. He needed the truth, or at least he needed to know who the heck he really was. His first stop? The most obvious choice. His mother's house. Jonah hadn't been back to his childhood home in years. It wasn't that there was any bad blood, more like an ever-present sense of awkwardness. But if there was anyone who could explain what the hell was going on, it had to be his mother. After all, she was the one who had raised him, so surely she knew the secrets he wasn't aware of, right? He rang the doorbell. It was a sunny morning, the air thick with the scent of fresh-cut grass and someone's BBQ in the distance. Despite everything that had happened in the past 24 hours, Jonah couldn't shake the feeling that he was living in a badly scripted science fiction movie, where he was the one who'd gotten stuck with all the impossible answers, and no one else seemed to get it. The door swung open, and there she was, his mother. Same warm smile, same glasses perched on the edge of her nose. "Jonah? What are you doing here?" she asked, a little surprised. Mom, we need to talk," Jonah said, stepping inside. "It's important. Really important." She raised an eyebrow but stepped back to let him in. "Okay, well, you've got my attention. Let's sit down. Coffee?" Jonah collapsed onto the couch, suddenly feeling about 10 years younger. He looked around the house, noticing all the little details that had once been comforting. The quirky family photos on the walls, the mismatched couch cushions, the old coffee table he used to build spaceship models on. But today, none of it felt normal. It all felt foreign. "I'm not sure where to start," Jonah admitted. "So, I guess I'll just say it. What do you know about the symbols?" His mother froze, a cup of coffee in her hand. Her eyes widened ever so slightly. "Symbols?" she asked, her voice lowering. Jonah nodded. "You know what I'm talking about, the ones from my dreams. They appeared in a video I saw, and they're linked to some alien assassin who's been tracking me." "Jonah," his mother's voice shook a little, a look of concern flashing in her eyes. "Where did you see those symbols?" "On a data chip I found," Jonah said, pulling the small device from his pocket. "It was a video of me, and in it there was a woman with the same symbols. I don't know how else to explain it, but I think it has something to do with me. And you, Mom, you're not telling me everything." She looked at him for a long moment before sighing deeply. Setting the coffee cup down, she sat beside him. "Jonah, I was hoping you wouldn't have to know about this." Jonah's heart began to race. "What do you mean? What's going on?" "Do you remember when you were little and I used to tell you bedtime stories about the stars?" she asked softly, almost nostalgically. Jonah blinked. The memory was faint, like an old radio signal fading out. Yeah, I remember. Stories about planets and faraway galaxies. They weren't just stories, Jonah. They were our history, his mother said, her voice barely above a whisper. Our people's history. Jonah sat up straight. What do you mean? What does that have to do with me? She took a deep breath. You weren't born here, Jonah. At least not like you think you were. Jonah stared at her, trying to process the words. His mind was still trying to catch up with the strange realization that he might not even be human. I don't understand, he said finally. Are you saying I'm not your son? No, Jonah, you are my son, she said, her voice trembling. But you're also something else. She paused, looking at him like she was searching for the right words. Jonah's head was spinning, but he felt like he was getting closer to the truth. Your father wasn't, well, he wasn't exactly from around here. I never told you because I thought it would be better if you didn't know. But you deserve the truth now. And the truth is, you were part of a project. A very secret project. Jonah's thoughts collided into chaos. A project? What project? What do you mean, project? His mother bit her lip. I'm not proud of it, Jonah, but the truth is, you were chosen. Jonah narrowed his eyes. Chosen for what? And by who? Chosen by a group of intergalactic organizations. They wanted to create a special human being. Someone who could bridge the gap between Earth and their worlds. Someone who could bring peace, unlock technology, and solve the problems they couldn't handle on their own. So, I'm some sort of science experiment? Jonah said, half laughing in disbelief. That's why aliens are after me? Because I'm some intergalactic peacekeeper in training? His mother looked guilty, but nodded. Yes, Jonah, but the story doesn't end there, because there's more you need to know. Jonah raised an eyebrow. Of course there is. There's always more. The woman you saw in the video, she's part of the same group. She was sent to find you when you were still a child. But something happened, Jonah. Something went wrong and she couldn't follow through with the mission. Wait, hold on. Jonah leaned forward. She didn't kill me? Why? His mother's voice lowered even more. Because, Jonah, you were always meant to be protected. Someone made sure you'd be safe. And that someone is a lot closer than you think. Jonah's mind whirled as the pieces started to fall into place. But before he could ask more questions, the room suddenly felt colder, as if the very air had changed. And then, from somewhere outside the house, he heard the unmistakable sound of a hovercraft engine revving up. The assassin wasn't done yet. Jonah stood in the doorway of his mother's house, his mind reeling with the revelations she'd just dropped on him. His whole life, all of it, had been some kind of cosmic setup. A project, a secret, a plan far larger than he could even begin to comprehend. And now the very person sent to kill him was still out there closing in. But right now, he had bigger problems. Like the hovercraft outside that was clearly not there to offer him a ride to the nearest mall. Mom, did you hear that? Jonah asked, his voice barely above a whisper. His mother's face paled. No, I didn't hear anything. She had the look of someone who was trying really hard to pretend that the problem was someone else's problem. The kind of look that, Jonah realized, he had seen too many times growing up. Mom, you're terrible at this. I know you heard that, Jonah muttered, already backing toward the front door. Jonah, no, you... Mom, please, we're in danger. And with that, he was gone, bolting out the front door, determined not to get caught in whatever mess his mother was trying so desperately to hide. As he stepped out into the fresh morning air, the familiar hum of a hovering engine grew louder, creeping closer. Jonah glanced up at the sky. No sign of anything yet, but it was only a matter of time. It was a very science fiction moment. The hovercraft appeared like an alien spaceship, sleek and dark, with pulsating red lights that seemed out of place against the otherwise peaceful suburban neighborhood. The thing didn't even have the decency to land like a normal vehicle. No, it hovered ominously a few feet off the ground, its silent presence sending an electric tingle down Jonah's spine. "Well, this isn't ominous at all," Jonah muttered under his breath, reaching into his jacket for the only weapon he could think of, his phone. He quickly dialed a number that had become somewhat of a lifeline for him recently, the number of someone who knew just enough about weird, alien, and downright dangerous situations. "Hello?" came the voice on the other end. It was low, professional, and a little too calm for Jonah's liking. "It's me," Jonah said, pacing around the front yard. "I need help, right now." "Jonah, you're still alive?" Jonah grimaced. "I'm serious here. The assassin, she's outside." There was a pause on the line, followed by a soft chuckle. "Is that all?" "I thought you were in real trouble." Jonah could feel his blood pressure spiking. "This is serious. I'm standing in front of my mom's house. There's a hovercraft with an alien assassin trying to kill me, and you're—" "Chill, Jonah. You're acting like you're in a bad movie. Just get to cover. You'll be fine." Jonah took a deep breath. Of course, his friend would tell him to chill. Everyone always told him to chill when things were at their most not chill. But maybe they were right. He needed to think clearly if he was going to survive this. He'd been given a second chance at life, after all. There was no way in hell he was going to waste it just because of some cosmic project he didn't even sign up for. "Okay," Jonah said, clenching his fist. "But if I get blown up in a hovercraft explosion, I'm blaming you." There was another chuckle from the other end of the line. "Sure, Jonah. I'll take full responsibility. Now, get moving." Jonah had just started to move toward the back of the house when a figure dropped down in front of him, the assassin. She was taller than he remembered, her skin a strange silvery hue, her sharp features almost otherworldly. Her black cloak rippled like liquid in the wind as she moved with the grace of a predator. There was no mistake now. This wasn't a random alien out for a stroll. This was a killer. Jonah froze, his heart hammering in his chest. She was even more imposing up close, and he couldn't quite place why she hadn't made a move yet. Was she hesitating? Was she— "Jonah," she said, her voice as cold as the blade she was holding. "You really don't understand, do you?" Jonah tried to steady himself. "I understand just fine, actually. You're supposed to kill me, but you haven't. And I know why now." He wanted to sound confident, but the reality of the situation was slowly dawning on him. She had been sent to kill him, but there had been a reason she hadn't finished the job. Her eyes narrowed slightly, but there was a flicker of something. Recognition, perhaps? "You think it's that simple? That I can just walk away from my mission?" "Yeah, well," Jonah said, trying to buy himself some time. "I think you just don't want to, because you found out something you didn't expect. Am I right?" The assassin's lips curled into the faintest of smirks. "You're clever, too clever for your own good." Jonah couldn't help it. He laughed. It wasn't a pleasant laugh, but more of an exasperated, sarcastic one. "Well, it's not my fault the universe has turned into a giant puzzle. I'm just trying to figure out where I fit in." The assassin cocked her head, studying him, as if trying to read him like a book she had long since read and discarded. "You're not a puzzle, Jonah. You're a key." Jonah blinked. "A key? Seriously? Like a key to what? A treasure chest? A vault? Do I need to unlock some intergalactic safe?" The assassin didn't smile. "Number. You're the key to everything. To them. To me. To what's coming next." Jonah stared at her, trying to process her words, but the sound of the hovering craft growing louder interrupted his thoughts. Something was coming. Something much larger than either of them. "Looks like we have company," Jonah muttered, glancing upward. The assassin turned her head slowly, as if noticing the hovering craft for the first time. Her eyes narrowed. "This changes things." Jonah raised an eyebrow. "No kidding. You don't think they're here for me, do you?" The assassin didn't answer, instead pulling her weapon to her side. "You don't understand what's happening, Jonah, but you will." Soon. And then, in the blink of an eye, she was gone, disappearing into the shadows like a ghost, leaving Jonah standing there with nothing but his thoughts and the impending storm. The game had only just begun. Jonah sat on the edge of the couch in his mother's living room, the silence between them thick and uncomfortable. His mind was still racing from the events that had unfolded, but something gnawed at him. He had more questions than answers, and the only person who could provide them was sitting right in front of him. His mother, who up until this moment had been nothing more than a normal, overbearing parent, except now she wasn't. "So, what's the deal with all the secrecy?" Jonah asked, breaking the silence at last. "What aren't you telling me, Mom?" His mother looked at him, her face pale, but her eyes were filled with an unreadable depth. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again, as if unsure where to begin. Jonah wasn't giving her much of a choice, though. He wasn't about to let her pull another one of those "we'll talk later" stunts. "You're not just an ordinary human, Jonah," she began slowly. "I thought you'd be ready to hear this sooner, but I guess we've reached the point where I can't hide it anymore." Jonah raised an eyebrow. "Okay, I'm listening." His mother took a deep breath, sitting down across from him. "You were never supposed to live this long, Jonah. I mean, I knew that you were special from the start, but I had no idea how deeply intertwined your life would be with what's coming. The alien assassin? She wasn't just sent to kill you. She was sent to protect you, and to stop you from becoming part of something far bigger than either of us can fully understand." Jonah blinked, trying to make sense of her words. "Wait, so I'm a target and a protector? Does that mean I've been in some kind of cosmic love triangle I didn't sign up for?" His mother gave him a faint, exasperated look, though Jonah could see the faintest hint of a smile tugging at her lips. "I'm serious, Jonah. I've tried to keep you out of it for as long as I could, but your real origin is far more complicated than you think." Jonah leaned forward, finally starting to grasp the weight of her words. "Are you telling me I'm not human?" His voice dropped to a whisper, almost in disbelief. "Not exactly," she replied. "You're part human, yes, but your other half, that's where things get tricky. The other half of your DNA, the part you've never known about, isn't from Earth. It's not even from a place we can call a planet. It's from an ancient alien race that has been in hiding for centuries. That's why the assassin came for you." Jonah's head spun. "So, I'm not even a full person? What does that mean? Am I, like, half alien or something? A freak?" His mother sighed, looking older than he had ever seen her. "No, Jonah. You're not a freak. You're the key to a much bigger puzzle. You're part of a legacy of beings who once ruled the galaxy and whose descendants have been hiding among humans for generations. You've been living with your human father's bloodline, but you're not just human. And your connection to them, that's why the assassin was sent. She's here to either stop you from realizing your true power or to bring you to their side, if it's too late." Jonah ran his fingers through his hair. "Okay, that's a lot to process, but does she know I don't even know anything about this whole alien business? I'm just trying to make it through a normal day without accidentally getting killed by some deadly, super advanced technology." His mother smiled slightly. "It's not your fault, Jonah. You've been living on the fringes of the truth for too long, and I kept you in the dark to keep you safe. But now, you're at the center of something, and the storm is coming." Jonah leaned back in his seat, a nervous chuckle escaping him. "So, I'm supposed to save the galaxy now? Great. I've barely made it through high school, and now I'm apparently a super-powered intergalactic heir with an assassin trying to kill me. What's next? A secret underground base with a talking AI that's actually a secret weapon in disguise." His mother gave him a long, searching look. "Maybe. I don't know. What I do know is that the assassin, her name is Arya, has a mission she didn't carry out." She hesitated. "She saved you instead of killing you, and there's more to it than you think." Jonah frowned. More? Like what? Like why she hesitated. His mother's eyes darkened. You two are connected in ways you can't begin to understand. Arya's not just an assassin. She was chosen to keep you alive. Not by accident, Jonah. Not by some random twist of fate. She has been hunting you for years, but the moment she met you, something shifted in her. Jonah's head was reeling again, and this time, it was more than just confusion. He didn't understand it, but he could feel it, the gravity of his situation. But why? What's the connection? Why me? His mother closed her eyes, as if gathering her thoughts. Because you're the last of them, Jonah. The last of your kind. Jonah felt a chill run down his spine. The last of who? Who are these people you're talking about? She opened her eyes, and for the first time, Jonah saw real fear in them. The last of the ancient ones, the ones who came to Earth millennia ago, before humanity even existed, the ones who planted the seeds of your true inheritance. Your bloodline is the key to a force that can reshape the entire galaxy. The assassins, Arya included, are part of a faction that wants to control it. They want to use you as a weapon. But you, Jonah, you are more than that. You are their hope. Jonah's heart thudded painfully in his chest. This is too much. He put his head in his hands. I don't want to be any kind of weapon. I just want to survive. His mother placed a hand on his shoulder. I know, Jonah. I've tried to protect you from all of this for as long as I could. But now it's out of our hands. Arya will come for you again. But this time, it will be different. Jonah raised his head, his brow furrowed. Why? What's different now? Because now you have a choice. His mother's voice was steady, but Jonah could hear the rawness in it. You can choose to embrace who you are, or you can try to fight it, but either way, your fate is sealed. Jonah stared at her, his mind spinning. I don't know if I'm ready for any of this, Mom. She gave him a small, almost sad smile. You don't have to be ready. You just have to be strong. Jonah nodded, feeling the weight of her words sink into him. Whatever happened next, he wasn't going to be the same person he'd been before all of this started. The storm was coming, and he was going to have to face it head on. Jonah sat in the cockpit of the sleek alien starship, staring out at the endless expanse of space before him. The stars twinkled coldly, like distant witnesses to the chaos that had come before. It had been a week since the encounter with Arya, and he still couldn't quite wrap his mind around the enormity of everything that had unfolded. He wasn't sure if he was ready to embrace the legacy that had been thrust upon him, but there was no going back now. Arya, once his would-be killer, was now his reluctant ally. Together they had confronted the faction of assassins that sought to control the galaxy through the power of his bloodline. He'd learned things he couldn't have imagined before, about his true heritage, the ancient race that once ruled over galaxies, and the dark, powerful force that ran through his veins. The same force that had made him a target, and now, the key to the survival of not just Earth, but countless other worlds. It was a lot to take in. You look like someone just stole your favorite snack, Arya's voice broke into his thoughts. She leaned casually against the doorway of the cockpit, her arms crossed, the faintest hint of a smirk tugging at her lips. Still grappling with the fact that you're basically the universe's most unexpected heir. Jonah looked over at her, an ironic smile forming on his face. Yeah, something like that. You know, most people go through life thinking they're just normal, average. And then you find out you're half alien, a key player in an intergalactic war, and your best shot at survival is being on the run with an assassin who tried to kill you. It's like every normal teenager's dream, right? Arya's smirk widened, but she didn't respond. Her silence, however, spoke volumes. She had come a long way from the cold, calculating assassin he first met. He'd seen it in her eyes, the way she looked at him now, not as a target, but as an equal. Perhaps even more. There was a connection between them that was undeniable, but the circumstances kept them on edge. "Are we really doing this then?" Jonah asked, straightening up in his seat. "Are we going to actually confront the leaders of this faction, the ones who want to control everything?" "Wouldn't be much of a story if we didn't," Arya replied with a raised eyebrow. "You think you can just go back to being a normal guy, Jonah? With all this in your blood?" The answer is no. You're part of something much bigger than you can imagine, and now that they know you're alive, they'll keep coming for you. Jonah exhaled sharply, turning his gaze back to the stars. "And what if I don't want to be part of it? What if I don't want any of this?" "You don't get to choose," Arya said, her voice softening slightly. "You never did, but you do get to choose how you fight, how you use what's inside you. That's the difference." Jonah considered her words. His life had been turned upside down in the span of a few weeks. The quiet suburban life he'd led seemed like a distant memory now. No more going to school, no more avoiding awkward situations with his parents. He was knee-deep in a war he hadn't even known existed, with an ancient, bloodline-driven conflict that stretched across the stars. He wasn't ready, but he had to be. Arya stepped forward, sliding into the seat next to him. "I know it's a lot to take in. Hell, I'm still trying to figure out why I'm not the one killing you by now. But one thing's for sure. Together we stand a chance." "Together," Jonah echoed. He had never thought he'd be saying that, especially not to an assassin who had once been sent to end his life. But the truth was undeniable. He wasn't just part of a legacy. He was creating his own path. And in that path, there was no room for isolation, no room for fear. He had changed in ways he hadn't even realized. "Tell me, what's next?" Jonah asked, trying to suppress the nervousness creeping into his voice. He was a kid from Earth. What did he know about leading a galactic resistance? Arya's eyes sparkled with something he hadn't seen before. Hope, maybe. "Next, we go to the heart of the faction. We shut them down. And when they come for us, we'll be ready." Jonah felt the weight of her words settle over him. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about something bigger, something beyond himself. And Arya, for all her cold exterior, was right. He wasn't alone. Not anymore. "All right then," Jonah said, straightening up. "Let's do this." As the ship's engines hummed to life, Jonah felt a sense of purpose swell inside him. He wasn't just the son of a man, or even the heir to an alien dynasty. He was Jonah, and that had to count for something. In a galaxy full of chaos, he was the one who could decide how it would unfold. A soft beep from the console interrupted his thoughts. A holographic display flickered to life in front of him, showing the distant outline of a massive space station, a fortress of the faction they had been tracking. "Time to face the music," Arya said, her voice tight with anticipation. "Let's see if they're ready for us." Jonah nodded, his heart pounding. It was time to end this, once and for all. The battle would be fierce, but in his mind, there was no question anymore. He wasn't going to back down. He was going to fight for himself, for Earth, for the future. The stars stretched out before them, a vast and endless sea of possibility. As they soared toward their destination, Jonah realized something profound. His journey had only just begun. And maybe, just maybe, he was ready to embrace it. He wasn't just the last of his kind. He was the first of the next generation. And with that, Jonah and Arya set their sights on the heart of the enemy, ready to reshape the fate of the galaxy together.